There's a comfortable lie that almost everyone believes, that when you're attacked, you need to explain yourself, you need to defend yourself, you need to clarify things. Billionaire CEOs know that this is exactly what destroys their authority. While most engage in emotional debates, endless justifications, and ego wars, the truly powerful do something that seems simple, but is profoundly counterintuitive. They don't react. And they don't react because they've understood something most ignore about real human nature. It's not the most logical argument that wins, it's the most stable presence. It's politics guided by reality, not ideals. Notice how those who try to prove they are right almost always seem insecure. The more you talk, the more you expose yourself. The more you explain, the more you lose control of the narrative. Machiavelli already warned that whoever controls perception controls the outcome, and that the end justifies the means when the means is to preserve power. Leaders who reach the top don't do so by being the nicest, but by being emotionally unreachable. It's better to be feared than loved, not out of cruelty, but because respect is born from silent firmness, not from the need for approval. What if I told you there's a way to turn any attack into nothing, without raising your voice, without proving any point, without convincing anyone? A way to make people think twice before even confronting you? Today, you'll understand how silence, when used strategically, becomes the most sophisticated weapon in the game. And when you learn this, something changes. You stop reacting, and the world begins to adjust to your presence. If something inside you awakened while listening, don't ignore that feeling. This channel isn't about videos, it's about memories. Remember who you were before the fear, before the exhaustion, before the silence. Each new video here is a different reflection of your own soul, an invitation to understand what the world never taught you. The power you seek outside has always been within you. If you feel that this journey speaks to what lives silently within you, sign up now. Not to follow yet another creator, but to reconnect with something the world tried to make you forget. Because here, every word was made to heal, each reflection to awaken, and each video serves as a reminder. You are not alone on the path back to yourself. Click on subscribe and turn the algorithm into a daily reminder of who you really are. When someone is accused, the most common reaction is to explain, detail, prove, almost beg to be understood, as if their own dignity were on trial. The experienced mentor observes that this compulsion stems from an ancestral fear of exclusion, something profoundly human, but dangerously exploitable. By justifying themselves, the person silently accepts that the other has the authority to judge them, and that their peace depends on this external approval. It is here that Machiavelli whispers an uncomfortable truth. Politics guided by reality, not by ideals. Those who talk too much relinquish control of the narrative and lose the perception of strength. A lengthy justification sounds like nervousness, and nervousness sounds like guilt, even when there is none. In social practice, those who over-explain seem to be hiding something, even if they are not. The end justifies the means, and the means here is perception, not objective truth. The wise man reminds us that the appearance of virtue weighs more than invisible intentions. In competitive environments, decisions based on real human nature prevail over well-intentioned speeches. That's why strong leaders avoid being hated, but never beg for understanding. Between virtue and fortune, controlling emotion is the most stable currency. Justification at its core reveals emotional dependence, and dependence never inspires respect. Notice how children explain themselves when they think they've done something wrong, and how adults maintain this pattern in meetings, relationships, and social media. The mentor smiles with slight irony and points out, emotional maturity begins when one abandons the impulse to defend oneself at all costs. Justifying oneself is a miscalculated use of force because it gives ammunition to the accuser. Instead of silencing conflicts, it prolongs them. Instead of ending doubts, it creates new ones. Machiavelli already knew that whoever controls the narrative controls perception, and narrative is not won with excessive words. Strategic silence, sustained by one's own loyal armies, self-control, inner clarity, and posture, is worth more than 1,000 explanations. It's better to be feared than loved, not in the literal sense, but in the silent respect that arises from firmness. When someone feels you don't need to prove anything, something changes in the air. The person realizes they've lost the center of the conversation. Constant adaptability requires perceiving when speaking weakens, and often, speaking is the mistake. The wisdom here lies not in winning the debate, but in not entering it. The mentor knows. Those who over-explain themselves put themselves down. In real life, this appears in simple, repeated scenes. A colleague questions your decision, a partner accuses you of your intentions, a stranger provokes your image. The impulse is to rush to justify, list facts, organize arguments like a lawyer for one's own ego. The mentor advises observing the body at this moment: shortness of breath, tense shoulders, accelerated voice. This is the sign that emotion has taken the wheel. Politics guided by reality, not by ideals, begins with physiological self-control. Taking a deep breath, pausing, choosing not to react is already a victory without war. The end justifies the means when the means is preserving one's own presence. The person who doesn't justify themselves transmits something rare, inner security. This creates discomfort in the other person because the expected game doesn't happen. Avoiding being hated doesn't mean explaining yourself, but maintaining composure. The appearance of virtue here is calmness, not submission. Virtù is knowing when silence speaks loudest. Fortuna favors those who don't expose themselves unnecessarily. And it is at this point that the attentive reader begins to realize that perhaps there is an even more powerful way to deal with accusations, not by reacting, but by turning the tables. The experienced mentor teaches that after abandoning justification, a more refined principle comes into play: strategic silence combined with elegant reversal. Here, Machiavelli becomes more relevant than ever, reminding us that it is better to be feared than loved, not out of brute fear, but out of the respect that arises when you do not recognize the authority of the one who attacks. Silence creates a psychological vacuum, and human beings hate emptiness. When a person accuses and does not receive the expected response, they begin to question themselves. The previously aggressive narrative loses strength. Politics guided by reality, not by ideals, means understanding that not every provocation deserves validation. The end justifies the means when the means is to preserve emotional control. Silence is not passivity, it is the calculated use of force. It demonstrates that you are not in defensive mode. Avoiding being hated here involves not humiliating the other, simply not explaining yourself. The appearance of virtue is built with composure. Virtù is knowing how to sustain silence without appearing weak. Fortuna favors those who master the timing of their response. And time, when used wisely, disarms more than just arguments. Instead of responding to accusations with lengthy explanations, the mentor suggests neutral, almost disconcerting phrases such as "interesting point of view" or "I understand that you see it that way." These responses neither fuel the conflict nor accept judgment. They end the conversation without submission. Decisions based on real human nature show that the aggressor expects emotion, reaction, defense. When this doesn't come, they lose their footing. In this context, one's own loyal armies are self-control, clarity of values, and a consistent stance over time. Silence creates discomfort, and discomfort makes the other person talk too much, and those who talk too much expose themselves. Machiavelli knew that controlling the narrative is not about speaking louder, but about speaking less and better. It's better to be feared than loved, because the unpredictable breeds caution. Constant adaptability means perceiving when the minimal response is more powerful than any discourse. The mentor observes that effective leaders rarely defend themselves. They let the environment do it for them. The reversal begins there, when the other person starts explaining themselves. The next step is to mirror accusations, without aggression, without overt irony, just with precision. When someone insists, a simple question can reverse everything. What made you think that? Or, why is this important to you? The accuser suddenly becomes the accused, not through direct attack, but through natural exposure. The end justifies the means when the means is clarity. This elegant reversal avoids being hated and still preserves the appearance of virtue. Politics guided by reality, not by ideals, teaches that most accusations say more about the accuser than about the accused. Virtue lies in conducting the conversation without appearing to be conducting it. Fortuna smiles on those who keep their emotional center intact. The initial silence prepares the ground, the reversal plants doubt. Calculated use of force here means using few words to generate maximum impact. And when the reader begins to apply this, they realize something curious. These strategies are not theoretical. They work in real environments, from work to everyday relationships. And that's exactly where everything starts to become even clearer. The mentor often says that theory without application is just intellectual vanity, and Machiavelli would never respect that. It is in real life that politics guided by reality, not by ideals, shows its value. In the workplace, for example, when someone criticizes a proposal with an accusatory tone, this doesn't make sense. This idea is weak. The common mistake is to defend every detail as if in a court of law. The calculated use of force here is different. Respond calmly and return the burden of the argument to the other person. A simple, "How would you do it differently?" changes everything. The question does not acknowledge absolute authority, does not ask for approval, and even tests the accuser's consistency. Often they freeze. Whoever controls the narrative controls perception. The end justifies the means when the means is to expose, without aggression, the fragility of the attack. It is better to be feared than loved because, after that, the person thinks twice before attacking again. Avoiding being hated involves not using irony or ridicule. The appearance of virtue remains intact. Virtue is maintaining a firm stance. Fortune usually favors those who know how to play this game with elegance. In relationships, the pattern repeats itself with even more emotional weight. Phrases like, "You don't care about me," are accusations disguised as feelings. The mentor advises, immediately justifying yourself, "Of course I care, I do this and that," only deepens the cycle. A strategic response respects decisions based on real human nature. A simple reply like, "Is that how you feel?" changes the axis of the conversation. There is no denial, no defense, only returning the emotion to the one who feels it. The brief silence before the phrase already creates space. Your own loyal armies here are emotional self-awareness and clear boundaries. The end justifies the means when the means is not letting yourself be dragged into an emotional judgment. Better to be feared than loved translates to being emotionally respected. Avoiding being hated requires a neutral tone, not sarcasm. The appearance of virtue is maturity. Virtue is maintaining calm when the other wants a reaction. Fortuna appears when the bond ceases to be a battlefield. On social media, the stage is public and the risk is greater, but the principle is the same. An accusation like "you're fake" or "you only say that out of self-interest" invites a spectacle of defense. The mentor advises the opposite, enigmatic, short answers that conclude the narrative. Something like, interesting how you came to that conclusion, or even absolute silence. Politics guided by reality, not by ideals, shows that the public observes posture more than argument. Those who defend themselves too much seem guilty, those who don't react seem secure. The calculated use of force lies in not feeding the algorithm of conflict. The end justifies the means when the means is to preserve symbolic authority. Better to be feared than loved translates into silent respect. Avoiding being hated means not humiliating or attacking back. The appearance of virtue is public self-control. Virtue is knowing when to disappear from the discussion. And after seeing these examples working in such distinct scenarios, the attentive reader begins to understand that it's not just about reacting better, but about transforming oneself internally. The mentor observes that when someone begins to apply silence and reversal, something deeper happens. Identity changes. The person stops reacting automatically and starts choosing. This is the true leap from someone who lived defensively to someone who acts strategically. The first principle is calculated silence. Not every attack deserves a response, because responding to everything makes oneself a hostage to the opinions of others. Machiavelli taught that politics guided by reality, not by ideals, requires a cold reading of the environment. The end justifies the means when the means is to preserve energy and focus. The calculated use of force appears when one consciously decides not to waste words. It is better to be feared than loved, because consistent silence creates unpredictability. Avoiding being hated is not about explaining oneself, it's about maintaining composure. The appearance of virtue is born from continuous calm. Virtue is sustaining this posture even under pressure. Fortune usually smiles on those who don't allow themselves to be drawn into petty games. Here, the mentor reminds us, power rarely shouts. The second principle is a brief and neutral response. Short phrases end conversations that could turn into battlegrounds. Understood, noted, make sense to you are simple but effective examples. Decisions based on real human nature show that attacks feed on emotion and continuity. By cutting off the continuity, the attack dies of starvation. Your own loyal armies at this stage are verbal self-control, stable body language, and consistency over time. The end justifies the means when the means is to reduce friction without submitting. Better to be feared than loved translates into silent respect. Avoiding being hated requires a neutral tone, not contempt. The appearance of virtue remains intact because there is no direct confrontation. Virtue is speaking the minimum necessary. Fortuna appears when the environment begins to adjust to your presence, not the other way around. The mentor often says, those who speak little weigh more. The third principle completes the transformation. Elegant reversal. It's not about revenge, but about clarity. Exposing others' weaknesses without directly attacking them creates natural authority. A well-placed question, a sustained silence, a calm gaze do more than accusations. Politics guided by reality, not ideals, teaches that visible power generates resistance, while implicit power generates adherence. The calculated use of force here is psychological, not verbal. The end justifies the means when the means is to make the other reflect on themselves. It's better to be feared than loved, because those who have felt this kind of reversal think twice before provoking. Avoiding being hated means not humiliating. The appearance of virtue is strategic maturity. Virtue is mastering one's own ego. Fortuna begins to act when other people spontaneously defend you, and at this point, the reader realizes that this transformation is not abstract. It changes how the world responds to your mere presence. The mentor emphasizes that knowledge without practice becomes just another beautiful idea, forgotten in the routine. Therefore, immediate application begins in the body, not the mind. When someone attacks, accuses, or provokes, the first step is simple and powerful. Take a deep breath and pause. This interval of seconds prevents the automatic reaction and restores control. Machiavelli would understand this as politics guided by reality, not by ideals, because the body reveals emotions before words. The end justifies the means when the means is to regain presence. The calculated use of force appears in physiological self-control. Better to be feared than loved here means not showing emotional instability. Avoiding being hated involves not reacting impulsively. The appearance of virtue is visible calmness. Virtue is choosing silence when the ego wants to speak. Fortuna tends to favor those who master this invisible micro-moment where everything can turn in their favor or against them. The second step is internal and almost a silent mantra. I don't owe you any explanations. The mentor teaches that repeating this mentally immediately reorganizes one's posture. Decisions based on real human nature show that most people attack to obtain emotional validation or control. When this doesn't happen, the attack loses its meaning. Here, one's own loyal armies are well-defined internal convictions and clear boundaries. The end justifies the means when the means is preserving dignity without confrontation. Better to be feared than loved translates into implicit respect. Avoiding being hated means not returning aggression. The appearance of virtue is quiet firmness. Virtue is maintaining one's own position without needing to convince anyone. Fortuna appears when the other retreats, confused before your stability. The mentor often reminds us, whoever needs to convince has already lost half their power. The third step closes the cycle with a simple and powerful idea: victory without war. It's not necessary to humiliate, win debates, or prove who is right. It's enough to exist with absolute confidence. Politics guided by reality, not ideals, teaches that presence is worth more than arguments. The calculated use of force lies in not engaging in unnecessary battles. The end justifies the means when the means are both inner peace and external authority. Better to be feared than loved manifests as silent respect. Avoiding being hated happens naturally when there is no confrontation. The appearance of virtue is serenity. Virtue is continuous self-control. Fortuna is revealed when attacks simply cease to occur. And by applying this immediately, the reader begins to feel something new. It's not about silencing the other, it's about making any attempt at attack irrelevant. And this feeling prepares the ground for a final message that ties everything together. Now, the inevitable question is, at what points in your life do you still over-explain yourself? At work, trying to prove your worth to those who have already decided to doubt you? In relationships, expending energy on accusations that never end? Or on social media, defending your image to people who have no real power over you? What you've learned here isn't about winning arguments. It's about stopping playing games that only exist to wear you down. Machiavelli would make it clear, whoever controls their own emotions controls the outcome, and that starts when you choose not to react. Apply this consciously. At the next provocation, pause, observe, breathe. Remember that you owe no explanations to those who haven't built anything you have. Use silence as a calculated use of force. Use short answers as your own loyal armies. Allow the appearance of virtue, calmness, firmness, presence to speak louder than any argument. You will notice something curious. The less you try to convince, the more respect arises. The less you defend yourself, the fewer attacks appear. It's better to be feared than loved, because silent respect creates natural boundaries. Now, I want to know from you, in what specific situation will you apply this today? Who is the person to whom you always explain yourself? And who, from now on, will you find silence, composure, and clarity? Think about this honestly. If this content opened your mind, if it made you see the game in a different way, subscribe to the channel and activate notifications. Here you learn to position yourself strategically, master your own presence, and live with politics guided by reality, not by ideals.